So let's get started. This is the first time that you and I have spoken since primary night. So of course I have to start out by asking you, describe for me the emotions that you felt that night when you saw the numbers coming in, and of course the moment when you realized that primary night wasn't going to end the way you had hoped it would.
Yeah, Tara, frankly, I was shocked. You know, all campaign long, we were way ahead in all the polls. And then on election night, it turns out that the people who actually came out to vote were much different than what they expected. You had a very large number of young people come out, first-time voters come out, who were very progressive, who were socialists, and that changed the entire makeup of the election. So I was shocked, I was surprised. Losing hurts. I'm not ashamed to say that. But I'm past the shock phase, halfway through the anger phase, and I took a couple of weeks to actually understand what happened, why it happened, and what's most important is the election that counts is the general election. Right. Primary election tends to have a much smaller turnout, much more activists in the Democratic Party. General election, you have more Democrats, more moderate Democrats, you have independents, you have Republicans, and the general election is obviously what matters. So I'm learning the lessons from the primary and going forward for the general.
So once you say that you've processed the shock, processed the disappointment, but I'm sure at some point you had to ask yourself the same question that everyone else was asking that week. How did the polls get it so wrong? What have you come up with?
Yeah. The polls assume the people who come out to vote will be similar to the people who have come out to vote in the past. And they base that assumption on their calculation. Right. What happened here was you had an explosion of young people who were socialists who hadn't never voted before, and like 100,000 people came out to vote who they never expected. And they were overwhelmingly votes for the assemblyman. And that changed. That just changed the calculus totally.
And now that you, though, have had a few weeks to dissect it all, you mentioned mistakes. What was the single biggest strategic miscalculation you think the campaign made?
The biggest strategic mistake was we had such a large lead in every poll that was taken, not just our own poll, every poll that was taken, and everybody took a poll. We had such a large lead that the campaign actually played it too safe, which is ironic because all my life I've been aggressive. I've been criticized as being too aggressive, right? And then I played it safe in the campaign, and that was a mistake. And not just strategically, but New Yorkers deserve a vigorous debate, right? This is a big decision. This city is at a tipping point, and the next mayor is going to make the determination if we go up or we go down. We're losing people, we're losing wealth, we're in trouble in New York City. So this is a big decision, and I was not aggressive enough in the campaign, not aggressive enough in making my case for my vision of what I believe needs to be done. Not enough of a discussion about how unrealistic my opponent's solutions were, in my opinion. So I'm not going to make that mistake twice, that I can promise.
And I know you thought about this decision to stay in long and hard, but what was the moment or specific conversation that really convinced you to stay in and run as a third-party candidate?
Well, you know, I had a lot of New Yorkers come up to me and say, you owe it to the city. We can't become a socialist city. We're not a socialist city. And that socialist mentality that is anti-business, anti-corporation, They want to dismantle the police. That doesn't work for New Yorkers. And they're frightened by that vision, right? If you say that New Yorkers are going to become hostile to business, we're all about business, right? We're all about attracting new companies. If you say you're going to dismantle the police, public safety is a major issue. Crime is a major issue. So people are afraid of what my opponent is talking about. I love the city. I believe in the city. I believe in the people of this city. I believe we can fix these problems. Nothing here is insurmountable. This is just bad government. This is just incompetent government. We know how to provide public safety, right? We know how to hire 5,000 new police officers. We know how to get homeless people off the streets. We know how to build affordable housing, right? I built a new LaGuardia airport, a new Mario Cuomo bridge, a new Kosciuszko bridge. We know how to build. So there's nothing we can't do. We just haven't done it. The government hasn't been able to do it. But we can turn this city around, and we can make this city the shining city it once was. I know that. I feel that in my heart, and I love this city too much not to try.
Now, you have also vowed, though, if you are not the leading candidate outside of Mamdani come September, that you'll bow out. So explain that to me practically how that would work, because, right, didn't we just get the most powerful reminder of how off the polls can be at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't actually need a poll. It's very simple to determine who's the stronger candidate between myself and Mr. Adams, without getting into any predictions. And both myself and Mr. Adams are basically moderate Democrats, but we're Democrats. Our main point is we shouldn't elect a socialist. This is not a socialist city, and his solutions are wholly unrealistic. So whoever is the stronger candidate between myself and Mr. Adams should be the candidate that goes forward. And I've said if Mr. Adams is the stronger opponent for Mr. Mamdani, fine. See you in the Bronx. If Mr. Adams is the stronger candidate against Mr. Mamdani, I will step aside. But on the other hand, if I'm the stronger candidate against Mamdani, then Mr. Adams should step aside.
If it's not a poll, then what's the criteria to determine that?
Well, polls avoiding the issue we just discussed, which was trying to gauge who's going to win the race, what the turnout is, how many young people, how many old people, just who has more support between myself and Mr. Adams. Okay. And that's very easy to determine. So
have you spoken? I know Jim Walden is supportive of this idea. He pitched it. The former governor, Patterson, loves the idea. But what about Curtis Leewa and Mayor Adams? Are you talking with them about it? Because I know I just interviewed Curtis Leewa a few days ago, and he told me the only way that he's going to not actively campaign in this race is death. So both of them seem very critical of this plan at this point. So what are your conversations like with their teams?
Well, death is pretty strong. Death is pretty strong. We're not talking about Mr. Leewa. He's going to run as a Republican. Let him run as a Republican. It's really between myself and Mr. Adams, because we would split the vote. That would make Mamdani the winner, and we can't let that happen.
And so if he doesn't agree to this, Mayor Adams, would you still move forward with plans to bow out in September if you are looking at the political calculus and determine that he's a stronger candidate?
Well, if I'm the stronger candidate, I'm going to move forward.
Got it.
And I don't believe Mr. Adams would wind up being a spoiler at the end of the day, because that's, if you don't step out, the weaker candidate would be just that, would be a spoiler, would guarantee the election of Mandani, and none of us want that.
Okay, so if everyone stays in, I mean, do you feel as though this race is being handed to Mamdani? If you stay in, Mayor Adams stays in, Curtis Leewa stays in?
That's why it can't happen. You're
You
right,
have
and
called,
that's why it can't happen.
You have called Mamdani's policies naive and worse, risky for New York. Which of his policies do you think would hurt the city the most if enacted?
The most dangerous is the basic socialist economic philosophy that is anti-business. And look, I've been fighting them for a long time. You'll remember a few years ago, I had Amazon coming to New York City. They were going to bring 25,000 new jobs, would have set up a national headquarters, and the socialists killed it and opposed it because they're anti-business. You can't be anti-business. If we're not growing, New York City is dying. The other policy is he wants to dismantle the police. You dismantle the police. This is an extension of what they did when they defunded the police. I opposed them then. They laid off police officers in New York City. I hired more police on the state side to compensate for what they were doing. They now want to go another step, which is to actually dismantle the police department and replace police officers with social workers. You know, there's a place for social work, but it's not as a police officer to stop violent crime.
So do you see your candidacy then in effect as a direct rebuke of democratic socialism?
I'm a Democrat. I'm not a socialist. They are different philosophies. And I've been fighting them for the past 15 years. They're anti-corporate, they're anti-business, they're anti-law enforcement, and that just does not work. I get the theory of it, and it's a great college curriculum, and it's maybe a utopian view. We don't need police. Everything is free. Yeah, but life doesn't work that way. It's not realistic.
You know, like him or not, it is very clear, you mentioned it at the beginning of this interview, that Mamdani struck a chord with young voters. I know, this is different than our last interview. You have a social media team with you. How else do you plan, what's the strategy to make up ground with that key voting bloc that delivered him that decisive victory?
Yeah, well, we're going to reach out much more than I did to younger voters. He was very good on social media and video. He's been an actor in the past. His family is noted for film production. So he used social media very effectively. I did not. That's going to be different in this campaign. But the issues are correct. Affordability is a problem. Rents are a problem. But his solutions are unrealistic. They may sound good on social media. He may be able to say it in 3 words, freeze the rent, grocery stores in every borough, but it's not reality.
I didn't hear you yet mention some of his policies as it relates to Israel. As you're well aware, there are still a large number of Jewish voters in this city who are concerned with his policies as it relates to Israel. His refusal to condemn certain language that is out there. Some of his critics have called him anti-Semitic. Do you believe that Zohran Mamdani is anti-Semitic?
That calls to look into someone's heart and soul, and I'll leave that to a higher authority. I can tell you that statements that he will not disavow, like globalized intifada, which basically means kill Jewish people, that is highly disturbing. His praise of Hamas, who are terrorists, that is very disturbing. And not only is the Jewish community in New York the largest Jewish community anywhere outside of Israel, they're a vital part of New York City. The Jewish community is family to me, literally. And I've been supportive of them all my life, and I always will be. And it's a bigger point. You can't be a divisive force in New York City. The mayor has to be a uniter. The mayor has to bring people together. because we have people from all over the world here. And you can have your own global views, but you can't split the city. And you have the Jewish community that is very concerned about growing anti-Semitism, as they should be. And I want to be a healer, not a divider.
Since primary night, he's picked up a number of your early supporters, including prominent Democrats here in the Bronx, where you're out campaigning today, and in Brooklyn as well. What's the strategy? Are you going to try to actively win back some of that support, or how are you building your coalition at this point?
There are Democratic officials who just automatically endorse the Democratic candidate, and he is the Democratic candidate. I understand that. I know how that works, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a difference. And he's not really a Democrat. He's a socialist, and I really am a Democrat.
So last question to tie it in a bow. You, over the decades, you have had extreme and frankly extraordinary successes, and of course also setbacks. When we're looking at the big picture, your decision to stay in this race, what do you hope it says about your legacy at the end of the day?
I believe in New York. I believe in public service. I know that I can make government work. I know we can get great things done. And I want to make sure I do everything I am doing and can do to help. We are at a critical moment, Tara. We have people leaving this city every day. That has to stop. We have to turn it around. And I know how to help do that. And I want to make sure I do everything I can. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
When you're walking around the streets of the Bronx and beyond, what are people telling you about your decision to stay in the race?
Oh, they've been very supportive. You know, you have to remember the primary, people who turn out in the primary is a much smaller universe of people. You only have about 4 or 5% of New Yorkers who come out and vote in the primary. So general election is a much larger universe. And the support, frankly, has been very, very touching. I have my daughter with me, and she was just commenting on it. People know me. They know what I've done as governor. They know what I've done through COVID. They know what I've gotten done for the state and the city. And they know that we need to make progress. And I think they believe that I can actually change things. And people want change.
You've run in so many races throughout your political career. This is the first one without the D attached to your name. That's got to feel different for you.
It does, Tara, but he is on the Democratic line, but he's not a Democrat. He's a socialist. And I've been a Democrat all my life. My father, God rest his soul, Mario Cuomo, was the epitome of a Democrat. So people know that. I know it. I have always been a Democrat, and I always will be. And what I'm actually trying to do in this election is say, keep the Democratic Party democratic. We're not socialists.